I'm turning into the goddamn Joker. You've probably seen the clip.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning.
Good morning.
Madam Secretary. Secretary Noem, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff recently said that the Trump administration is actively looking at suspending habeas corpus. Last week, you were asked about this, and I want to clarify your position because it's obviously really important to get this right. So, Secretary Noem, what is habeas corpus?
Well, habeas.
So, Kristi Noem, of course, is the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. She oversees, among other things, ICE. She, alongside Pam Bondi, are basically the brown shirt enforcers of the Trump administration. These are the two enforcement wings. Of course, you have the DOJ, and here, of course, you like literal brown shirts, like ICE just deputizing everyone they can, putting masks on, and arresting people, brutalizing people. Right, we know. I've said this before, and I still think it's interesting, but in spite of what you would think would be an immediate weaponization of the FBI has actually been quite over the past few months. My speculation, I guess my thinking on this is that there's been a lot of difficulty from the side of the Trump administration in properly weaponizing them. Because if you think about it, the only real attack dogs from the DOJ that you've seen are direct Trump appointees, right? Like Pam Bondi herself. Every time the Justice Department sends one of its lawyers over to deal with a federal injunction, for example, the lawyers are look like they're being held hostages, right? Like, we've seen this happen multiple times. One of the lawyers even got fired. The one who I believe who went to speak with Judge Zinnis about the was that the Kilmar Abrego Garcia case where he showed up and he was like, yeah, I don't really know what the legal pretext for his removal was. I don't know what I'm doing here. Please don't ask me any questions. I'm scared, mommy. That one. Like, the lawyers for the DOJ are not on the train. They're not on the Trump train, right? And likewise in the FBI, I bet you it's the same thing. It's just FBI agents, by virtue of their job, are a little bit more like quiet, right? Like, whether or not they're partisan Republicans is irrelevant, because a lot of these FBI agents are conservative, but they're conservative like Ronald Reagan, austerity politics, white supremacy. They're not conservative like paint your face orange, oorah, oorah, we're pro-Russia now. Wait, maybe we're not, we don't know. Like, it's a different thing, you know? It's a different thing. But with ICE specifically, ICE is full of cops, and cops already were on the Trump train. So I think that functionally, Kristi Noem and the DHS, the biggest threat in America right now, because they were the only department full of people evil and stupid enough to be very easily moved over and like quickly brought in line with the administration. Never forget Tom Homan, the border czar, that freak. He was initially appointed under Obama, and he's had these positions, the views he has now, for years. So the department already had a disposition towards this kind of stupid evil, and Kristi Noem's perfect for them. So anyway, stupid and evil, play the clip.
Well, habeas corpus is a constitutional right that the president has to be able to remove people from this country.
Anyone remember their high school civics class? This is impressive. She wouldn't pass a goddamn citizenship test. Isn't it that what people need to know what they're being arrested for? It's due process. Habeas corpus, it's essentially, it's due process. She just described the opposite of due process, essentially. What's incredible to me is that this answer is stupid enough that it doesn't even work in a like Overton window shifting the realm of discourse kind of way. It seems like she actually thinks that. I think she thinks this. I do. I genuinely think that she believed it when she said it. My guess is that prior to the broader discourse about Trump and Stephen Miller suspending habeas corpus, she had never heard the term before, or maybe had only heard it in passing. And because the people of this administration hold the idea of knowing things in absolute contempt, she just never corrected her lack of knowledge. Maybe behind closed doors, she talked about it a little bit, to which people hastily assured her, like, no, habeas corpus still allows the president to deport illegal aliens. Which it does after a due trial, right? So in her head, she thought like, oh, that's what habeas corpus is. It's when the president can deport illegal aliens. That's my guess. I think she thinks that.
Suspend their right
let me stop you, ma'am.
Suspend their
habeas
right
corpus, excuse me, that's incorrect.
President
habeas
Lincoln
corpus
used it.
Excuse me. Habeas corpus is the legal principle that requires that the government provide a public reason for detaining and imprisoning people. If not for that protection, the government could simply arrest people, including American citizens, and hold them indefinitely for no reason. Habeas corpus is the foundational right that separates free societies like America from police states like North Korea. As a senator from the live free or die state, this matters a lot to me and my constituents and to all Americans. So Secretary Noem, do you support the core protection that habeas corpus provides, that the government must provide a public reason?
This is the thing that pisses me off, by the way, because this would be a phenomenal time to like crowd farm and be incredulous. Are you telling me the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security doesn't know what habeas corpus is? Did you seriously not know the answer to that question? Like any Republican would jump on this opportunity if given the chance. They would be like, you can't insult Noem. There are rules to decorum, but you can tear into them pretty aggressively, you know.
In order to detain and imprison someone.
Yeah, I support habeas corpus. I also recognize that the President of the United States has the authority under the Constitution to decide if it should be suspended or not.
It has never
Let us be clear, though,
it has never been done. It has never been done without approval of Congress. Even Abraham Lincoln got retroactive approval from Congress. So I have been asking executive branch nominees a simple question over the past few months. If the president orders them to break the law, I've been asking, will you follow the law or follow the order? I want to ask you a more specific question here.
Retroactive approval. Lincoln revoked habeas corpus the one and only time it was justified, which was when the Civil War began. He had to root out the traitors from inside the country. That's a perfectly valid reason for suspending habeas corpus. Like, the country was torn in half and the South declared war on the North. That's a pretty goddamn good reason for it.
If the president tries to suspend habeas corpus and a federal court reverses the president's order, will you comply with the court order and uphold habeas?
He literally revoked it so Congress could safely travel to D.C. and meet and actually give him permission. Oh yeah, because like the war started really suddenly, so like there were a lot of United States Congress people who were in like embattled areas, right? Like essentially the argument was like, well, we need to like immediately remove them so that we can separate the lines.
Corpus, or will you follow the president's directive?
We are following all federal court orders and are complying with that, as is the president, and every decision that I make as well.
That is obviously not true for anybody who reads the news. There are federal court orders right now, including returning.
I'm sorry, one second. Just another really good bit.
President and every decision that I make as well.
That is obviously habeas corpus, or will you follow the president's directive?
We are following all federal court orders and are complying with that, as is the president, and every decision that I make as well.
That is obviously not true for anybody who reads the news. There are federal court orders right now, including returning somebody who was deported mistakenly.
Thank God Stephen Miller is more of a big picture guy who wants to work, you know, like right next to Trump rather than managing one of these departments, because he would be way the more threatening running the DHS.
To be clear, this is about a fundamental legal right that ensures that we live in a free society instead of a police state that would have a sham legal system like Russia or.
Again, like and I hate this Senator Hassan here as well, because and I do hate her, because politics is politics. Why is she acting like a bureaucrat? She's acting like she's scolding somebody in a private performance review, you know? Politics is politics. It's about crowd fare. Why are you just like correcting her? You should be playing it the up. The Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security doesn't know what habeas corpus is. It's insane. Like, why are you so bad at your job? Why are you so bad? The whole point of this is to open these cabinet members up to public scrutiny and to make a spectacle of them.
North Korea.
She's acting like she's correcting Noem's behavior and expects Noem to improve by her next meeting. Yeah, like a teacher and a student. Oh, I'm very disappointed in you. You've been doing very poorly. You don't know what habeas corpus is, and you've been breaking the Constitution. Well, we'll see you in a year. What?
So I'm glad that you have now committed to following court orders. I'm glad you believe in the basic freedom.
See?
for Americans if ordered to do so by a court. And again, I want just to make clear that it is critically important that even if the president tries to suspend the right of people to know why they've been detained or imprisoned, if a federal court reverses that order, that you will follow that order. And I hope all the members of the administration will, because it's obviously critical.
I really hope. Now, listen, okay, I know that like in this little prompt, I've exposed a shocking lack of knowledge on your part, for which you could be rightfully mocked, both by me, my party, and the media, like indefinitely. However, this was, in truth, this was really about correcting your mistake, and I'm really happy to hear that you'll commit to doing better in the future. Oh, this is the House hearing. He was really taken to task there. Yep, really got a good scolding there. There was a senator talking to, I think it was Rubio, and she said she was going to speak to him as a Jewish mom, and she, no joke, said, "I'm not even mad, I'm just disappointed." Yeah, that sounds about right. Republicans have figured out politics is a dirty game. They're running circles around Democrats. No. Republicans aren't doing anything new here. Democrats are the ones who are being unique. For basically the entire history of Western democracies, parties have been relatively cutthroat. You can look back at the history. FDR is the example we go to most readily, but literally look at like how the parties behaved any time before Reagan. Any time before then. And you'll find like even liberals, right, compared to today, aggressive, willing to denounce their opposition, to make bold claims. They knew how to play politics. It's only post-Reagan. Reagan, Bush, and then Clinton, Dickless Clinton, he comes in with the message, well, we're not going to fight you on the economy. Since then, it's all been downhill in terms of like, liberal spinelessness. Now, Canadian liberals are also pretty bad, Masaigu, but they're better than Democrats. For other examples of this, you can compare the historical Labour Party to the current Labour Party. You can take a look at Macron and his party over in France, 80% of Germany. I don't know. Kristi Noem's DHS considering U.S. citizenship reality TV show. I don't even want to talk about this shit, man. Apparently, it's being pitched by the Duck Dynasty people, and the idea would be like, hello, immigrants, which one of you wants to become a citizen? How much pig shit are you willing to eat? Very American. Mr. Beast fascism. Orsov, who wrote the 35-page program pitch, is known for his involvement in reality TV shows The Millionaire Matchmaker, Dating Naked, and Duck Dynasty. Challenges across the country for the honor of fast-tracking their way to U.S. citizenship. Phenomenal. Unironically, the main reason this won't happen is because it would probably humanize immigrants too much. Maybe. According to the proposal for the reality show, a group of 12 pre-vetted contestants would arrive aboard the citizenship, get it? At New York's Ellis Island and be welcomed with a personalized baseball glove by a famous naturalized American who will host the proceedings. Names suggested for the role of host include Sofia Vergara, Ryan Reynolds, oh I'm sure, Mila Kunis, oh I'm sure. Competing in cultural contests specific to each region. Specifically mentioned in the pitch are collecting gold from a mine in San Francisco, balancing on logs in Wisconsin, launching a rocket at Cape Canaveral, rafting in Colorado, clam digging in Maine, assembling a Model T Ford in Detroit, and delivering mail on horseback in Kansas. Cousin in West Virginia. As the show progresses, the losing contestants will go home with iconically American prizes, which bizarrely are suggested to include 1 million American Airlines points, a $10,000 Starbucks gift card, and a lifetime supply of 76 gasoline. No companies are believed to be connected with the proposal. Orsov reportedly says in the pitch not only would the show be a commercial hit, but it lends itself to enormous corporate sponsorship opportunities. It's so tacky. The picture of Noam. I'm gonna sort of lower the brow of my commentary for a bit and just say, I'm assuming on the premise that the majority of people who vote for Trump are sexist, do you not have an issue with all of your women looking like this? Like, does it not in your mind? I think this has to be some kind of like Madonna whore thing where you want to does the average Trump voter look at the way they all look and think like, I'm glad they've been dolled up for me? There has to be some, because this isn't being done for no reason, right? If you take a look at how Democrat women look, for the most part, they just look like women. I mean, like older women, I guess, because everyone in the Democratic Party is old, but they just look like regular people. And then every single Republican woman looks like this weird strung out skeleton Barbie with an overdone tan. I don't understand. It's very, for an ideology as obsessed with aesthetics as fascism, it is wild how ugly they all are. I'm sorry. It's not about like their face shape or whatever. It's just all the plastic surgery and the tanning and so on. It's all freak shit. Even the men are getting stuff done to their face. Yeah. Oh, what's his name? The guy who looks like one of the Beavis and Butthead too. Gates. Yeah, Matt Gates. Thank you. Fascists don't develop a sense of taste, so this is the result. To an extent, I disagree with that. It's just that usually fascists borrow taste, right? Like Mussolini borrowed the aesthetic of the Roman Empire, like connected his legacy to like Roman antiquity, right? And so did Hitler because he was a shameless fanboy, but also to this like kitschy, like German fairy tale romanticism or whatever. Like there were not so much creating something, but sort of borrowing something. What does this borrow from? Like chitsy 90s reality television? I don't understand. Listen, okay, if you look at the aesthetics of the Trump administration, you are not looking at like a veneration of Western legacy or whatever, right? You're not looking at like people whose idea of the ideal feminine aesthetic comes from statues carved in marble. You're looking at people who have like I don't know, it's all Jersey Shore shit. True facts, Nazis justified their actions by pointing to manifest destiny, slavery, and Jim Crow in the US. That's true to an extent, but sometimes I wonder if that gets like overstated. Like two people in chat said basically the same thing at the same time, which is that the Nazis took their cues on racism from America, which isn't true, right? Like they pulled from a literally millennia-long anti-Semitic tradition in the region they were in. Wait, that's not true? It's just an oversimplification, right? I worry sometimes people do the American diabolism thing a little bit, where they're like, well, the Nazis learned how to be evil from America, which is like, well, no. I mean, the Nazis justify their evil with like a million different things, but it's not like they didn't know how to be evil. And then they were like, well, over in America, they had eugenics. And they're like, oh, okay, we'll do that. Like they pulled from everything they could get. But I wonder if sometimes the over attribution pulls away from the unique evil of the Nazi regime, because sometimes again, like it's you ever, because there's this very specific brand of like lefty criticism where they're like, well, the only reason that America hated Germany is because the Germans were doing that to white people, which is like, that's not true at all. Or I see this one a lot where people are like, America would have been allied with the Germans if it weren't for the fact that they were fighting our allies, which again is like, that's not true. That's not true at all. What the hell? Where did this come from? Unfortunately, sometimes the lefty perspective on this that I see, it's the same as the Nazi perspective that they take now, where Nazis say, well, actually, Americans were never ideologically opposed to the Reich, right? They were only like geopolitically opposed. And then lefties will kind of agree with that, but it's not true. It's not true. That's not a good thing to say. One I've been seeing recently is that people say Hitler was only exceptionally evil or the only reason people say Hitler was exceptionally evil is because he targeted Europeans. Yeah, that's also not true. That's not true. I don't know why people want to be so contrarian about Nazi Germany. Then why didn't America say anything when Africans were being genocided by Europeans? I don't understand what the point you're making is. America in the 1930s didn't have a principled opposition to like colonialism. We were doing it. But the idea that we were ideologically aligned with the Nazis up until they fought our allies is not the case. That's not really how history works. We were also racist. Yeah, but there's a pretty big like gulf between being racist in like a 20th century colonial way and being Nazi Germany. And if you can't appreciate the difference between those two, I feel like you're really, really, really missing out on like the evil of the Reich, right? There's like a really big gulf there. Hitler literally praised American eugenics programs. And what does that have to do with what I'm saying? He praised racism in like every country around him because he was trying to find allies in those countries. Like you know that he did the same for like racist elements of British society and French society, right? The whole ideology was about like pan-Aryan, like he was trying to appeal to the racists in those countries. Like, of course he was praising them, but that doesn't mean that like Hitler was like a normal German leader. And then he was like, oh, but what if I take this American idea? Eugenics was widely believed at the time. I just feel like we're over attributing here. Like the Reich was a very German thing, you know? I'm confused by the unique evil point. Wasn't the takeaway from things like the trial of Adolf Eichmann that he wasn't some unique evil monster, but in many ways a regular person? That was about the psychological profile of Nazis. The idea that there wasn't anything different about their brains, but that psychologically a normal person could be molded into that. What I'm talking about is that, like, Nazi Germany, in terms of what they did and what they wanted to do, was not like a regular colonial European regime. And the idea that the only reason America took issue with them is because the killing was being done to Europeans as opposed to non-Europeans is just not true. It's just like lefty contrarianism. And also, it to an extent, it's Nazi propaganda, because Nazis love to say, like, no, the American GIs that landed in Normandy or whatever actually would have agreed with the Nazis if it weren't for geopolitical differences, because the goal of the Nazis is to detach anti-Nazism from American legacy, right? The goal of the modern Nazi is to say, no, your great-grandpa who landed in Normandy would have agreed with the Nazis. It was just countries, different sides of the Atlantic, different, whatever. But like in principle, because they were racist, they would have agreed. And I think that kind of historical revisionism is really destructive, because like that's not true. For example, right, the average Union soldier during the Civil War was racist and didn't care that much about slavery, right? Like when the Civil War broke out, because the South, the Confederacy broke off and then invaded, right? The average Union soldier was not like a principally pro-abolitionist guy. They were just defending their country. By the end of the Civil War, if you read some letters that were being written by Union soldiers, they sounded like they were fighting a holy war. Union soldiers were like, yep, just burnt like 600 acres of slave owner crop field. We've dug a few more ditches that we're going to fill with bodies. May God bless us in our holy quest to, like, the tone from the beginning of the Civil War to the end of the Civil War shifted dramatically from the Union side when they encountered more and more of the barbarism and degeneracy of slavery. So, like, was the average Union soldier racist? Absolutely, 100%. But there's a difference. You have to appreciate the difference, right? Was the average American in 1939 anti-Semitic? Yeah, probably. But were they okay with the Holocaust? No. The American public did not, in fact, react with indifference when the broadcastings from the camps when we, liberated Berlin and so on. It's just you have to engage with the nuance a bit there. It basically was true of the British. Nearly every UK newspaper supported Hitler till he pointed the guns in their direction. I don't think that's true. Newspapers are owned by the bourgeois. It's possible business interests in the UK may have been supportive of Hitler because that's what business interests do, but that's not true at all. Post-World War I sentiment towards Germany was not positive. You guys know that, right? Germany had the blame pinned on them for World War I, at least to a large extent. The public was not. The idea of unified white supremacy, the idea that, like, all white people are in it together, all European white people are in it together against non-white people, is a post-World War II construct. That was not the case back then. Germans weren't pro-white, they were pro-Aryan, right? The Germans wanted to exterminate Slavs and large portions of occupied France, and if they got to it, Britain. They were not, like, as keen on Britons as they were Aryans, right? Like, there were obviously degrees of tolerance they would accept for practical reasons, because the Nazis didn't want to say, like, we want to kill literally 99% of people. But, like, practically speaking, look at how they treated the Slavs, right? They went into Warsaw. Half of the people in Poland were as white and as blonde, or whiter and blonder, than the Germans. But that's ideology. Now, the UK aristocracy and upper class were obsessed with Hitler. Okay, but that's the aristocracy and upper class. My argument would be that those people are anti-American. Well, maybe not. We're not talking about America. We're talking about the UK. But, like, I reject the assertion that, like, everyone was totally chill with Hitler until he started killing Europeans, like, very publicly. Okay? I think that you are really, like, denigrating the extent to which Nazism was a unique cultural force that was uniquely reviled. And it's not just racism. Racism and Nazism, there's like a gulf here, Most Americans didn't want to join World War II. Yeah, because they thought of it as like a foreign conflict in a world that barely had begun to become, like, international. That's not the same as supporting Hitler. Now, there were people in America who did disingenuously say shit like America first in an effort to support Hitler from abroad, right? Because they didn't want American involvement. But the vast majority of Americans who didn't want to get involved in World War II, that wasn't because they supported Hitler. That was just because they didn't want to get involved in a war. What happened after Pearl Harbor? Everyone was gunned the fuck up. All the anti-war people quieted down because they would have gotten lynched in the street. After Pearl Harbor, American polling after Kristallnacht? Oh, interesting. Public opinion poll after Kristallnacht. Do you approve or disapprove of the Nazi treatment of Jews in Germany? 94% disapprove. And this was before, like, knowledge of the Holocaust was broadly known. This was just the Kristallnacht, which was, I mean, it was a pogrom, certainly, but the full extent of the knowledge was not public. Just keep this shit in mind when Nazis tell you that, like, the average American would have been okay with the Nazis back then. Should we allow a larger number of Jewish exiles from Germany to come to the United States to live? No. Yes, the Americans were still racist and anti-Semitic, but I don't think we should, like, flatten the curve, you know? The poll must have been hypocritical considering what happens to black people. I don't know what you mean. What do you mean by that? When Mosley marched with 3,000 in 1936, he was met by roughly 200,000 anti-fascists. People were not okay with fascism. If only we could get those numbers today.